I joined Potters and Sculptors, it was December of 2022, so a little over a year ago, and that was right after we moved to Laguna Woods for half the year. I lived half the year in New Hampshire and half the year here. And I've been a potter since I was 17, 52 years ago. And I studied in Japan when I was 17. And then I went to college, majored in art and biology. Don't ask why. Then I got a master's in fine arts in sculpture, and then I became a textile designer in the Garment Center from 1978 to 1996, at which point I said I really wanted to teach, so I became a teacher, a high school art teacher, teaching sculpture, ceramics, and freshman studio. So until about 2010, I mainly threw on the wheel and made sculpture, and mostly ceramic sculpture. And then my last year of teaching, which was 2009, 2010, I was teaching freshman studio, and I ordered this product for the kids to do linoleum prints, block prints, instead of linoleum, because they were constantly cutting themselves. With linoleum, it's very hard to cut, and they would put their hand in front of the knife and ram into it with the cutter. So I had heard from the elementary kids that this was on the market, so I ordered it for the studio, and then one day I was looking at it, and I decided it might work in clay. So I went home and I took a piece, and it was like a piece about that size, and I made a leaf. And then I started making these leaf bowls. And I really liked it. It was really fun. And because I had been a textile designer, designing fabrics for years and years, I can draw, and I love drawing flowers and plants and stuff like that. So sort of one thing led to another. And that's how this came about. So this product, which on your little sheet it tells you the two companies that still make the right stuff, which is Dick Blick makes soft cut. This is soft cut, and then NASCO, National School Specialty Company, makes this slightly thicker white stuff, which comes in a 1/4 inch thickness and a 3/8 inch thickness. And I think I might have a 3/8 inch one down there. Unfortunately, when the pandemic happened, Dick Blick started shipping this stuff, which is gray rubber on the top and some sort of plastic that melts on the bottom. And a lot of the ones I made during the pandemic have like fallen apart and melted. So this was called Ready Cut, and I have on there, don't buy Ready Cut, because they'll send you this instead of this. Is rubber, and it's the same material all the way through, and it's pretty flexible. Linoleum is much heavier in density, and it doesn't bend when you pull it off the clay, and it's harder to cut. You'll learn all that. So here's some of the pieces I make, and then I'm going to show you like sort of how this evolved. So this is from a 12 by 12 inch square of that material, which I did that design, then I pressed it in clay, then I draped it in a bowl and put feet on it. Same here.
So you have to draw the design, right?
Yes, and I'm used to drawing designs, because that was my background. So you can see there's a lot of flowers and leaves and different shapes. What I like about it also is not everything's round, or, you know, you can play with the shape. That's a different leaf with a butterfly. That's a bird. One, this is in a gallery in New Hampshire. Birds in the sky. Another bird one, this one's sort of upside down. I think I shot this funny, but that one has rubber stamped little flowers all around, and the bird is a central stamp. These are leaf platters. I'm kind of known for these leaf bowls now. This has dots of oxide, thousands of them. That's another thing I did during the pandemic. A lot of dotting. And this is an oval shape made from 2 leaves. Another flat. I sell these, people use them for sushi, a lot of them that are flat. That's a bigger bowl. That was made when we were wintering in LA. That's looks like Black Mountain. Very beautiful plant. This is draped in a smaller bowl, same kind of print as the other ones. Another big plate with daisies. This is an oblong platter with flowers, dogwoods, I think. These I sell in New Hampshire. Anyone I make is fun. This is the nesting room, and this is the swimming room. And I am a member of the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen, which is a juried association. We have a fair in August. It's the largest craft fair in New England. 30,000 people come to see about 500 artists. So this is one of my big fair items. And they also own, I guess, franchise 7 galleries. So I'm in all the league galleries and in this fair. That's where most of my pots go. Ginkgo leaves. Then, I guess, let me look what year this was. 2021, I decided I would do some reliefs on the wall. So I carved some things, and then a friend of mine had been using these Italian oil stains on bisque clay and actually painting. And they were made for clay. Well, after I looked at the ingredients and smelled them, I figured out that it's really thinned oil paint. I didn't need to buy these things from Italy. I could buy oil paint and thin it. And so I did a few of these in 2021 and 22, which were fun. Just because I like to paint too, so that's another one. And they have brackets built into the clay on the back, so they hang on the wall. Then I got into these vases. Really, at the end of 2022 and 23, I started hand building these because throwing on the wheel I have a bulging disc right where you bend over the wheel, and throwing on the wheel got sort of impossible. So now I learned a technique where which is how the Japanese make their moon vases. I throw like 2 bowls, put them together, and use flat coils between. You'll see. That's how all these are made. Usually I throw a base, then I flat coil up, then I throw a top. Some of these are made on a plaster mold, which I put on the wheel with a Biffen grip. I put this right on the wheel, and then I smack and pull up a neck or a foot. So, this whole thing has just evolved in the last 2 years with the vases and putting these onto them. That one is with flowers. That was in a show this past fall. This is where I live in New Hampshire. You can see the lake. It rained so much last summer that I could never finish glazing in one day. This is my pots with 1 coat waiting to go out. I have a spray booth outside to spray glaze. So this is where I live. That's where my studio is, right on ground level looking at the lake. This is the same fish stamp. This is another relief I did last year. Now this one is built, it's not just one flat piece of clay. It's like slabs built together, and underneath it I used, there's a metal mesh that you can sort of form that's made for sculpture. So I laid that out and adding things to the top of it. And they're all slipped and scored together. This is a piece I did last spring, sort of similar to that one. And my husband and I, we were in Japan last March to celebrate that it was 50 years since I had lived there. And it was actually 51 because the year before Japan was still closed. And we did a lot of touring of ceramic places. This is part of the inspiration after I got back. Irises, that's a small one. Big one. And this is similar to this one, different leaf. It just came out of the kiln here. Oh, that's the red dot. That sold in a show this past summer. It's very exciting. Yep.
What's the yellow glaze?
That is not a yellow glaze, that's naked clay.
Oh. That's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, that's just glazing the inside and then pouring on the outside. This is my setup at the fair last summer. Cobalt. This is a piece I sold to someone in Massachusetts that's in situ. And these are the pieces I made before I left that are sitting on the shelf drying. Not all of, they were a little smoother than this when they left. This was hydrangeas from my neighbor in one of my vases. Another piece that's back east, waiting, drying.
I'm nervous. I'm getting this in. There it goes.
Okay, and it slides in like that, and then you tighten it up. Okay, so at home, what I have is I have like 4 of these, and I put a big 2 on one and a big 3 on the next one, and a big 4 on the next, so I don't have to keep changing them. So that's a 2. Okay, we're gonna say blue is 2, they rhyme. Okay, and then the next one that I'm gonna put in is a 3, and 3 is really good for a wide line. Like most of these wide lines are 3, and these skinnier lines are 2s. Okay, so what I tend to do, you can look at these, is I'll do my outline of whatever I'm making in the wide line, and then I'll put in my texture or where I want to create shadow with the fine line. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's a basic drawing principle. You know, you hatch with the little pencil and you outline with the big pencil. Okay, so that's a 3. So you need at least one of those.
Could the people who have their
Water bottles make their water
lower
bottles.
them?
Okay. So I'm going to teach you the trick of how to get your design onto this, which it took me a while to figure out, and then I taught all my students, and it really worked out fine. So these are really simple designs that I just put together today because I wanted something easy. So what you do is you can use tracing paper, because sometimes you'll have like a photograph of a gorgeous leaf and you want to simplify it you put the picture under the tracing paper and you make a simple outline of it or whatever. And tracing paper works. I kind of like something a little heavier, but it doesn't matter. So you make a rectangle that's the size of your block, right? And here it's like thumbnail sketches, right? I sketched a bunch of different little things this afternoon. I'm going to make one of those and show you how it's done. I'm not going to finish the whole thing, I'm sure. So once you've drawn it in a regular pencil, number 2 pencil, okay, you want to buy, and it's number 2, number 3, an ebony pencil or a 6B pencil. Okay, these pencils are really soft. They have a lot of clay and only a little graphite. The letters, the numbers and the A or B indicate how much graphite and how much clay in the pencil. So you want the softest pencil you can get, which is an ebony. Okay, so you're gonna go over whatever your final design is with the ebony pencil and put a lot on. So I usually go back and forth a few times. Okay? I'm just doing this really easy. Don't worry, because you can fix this. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay? So I've got very quick little leaf here. Sometimes I also go, because I want to be able to cut it out later. So I also give myself like a 1/4 inch outline guide all the way around. So I have some, nowhere to place it, I have some space.
Could you use a charcoal pencil?
Doesn't stay on here. Then you cut it out, okay? And I will tell you that when you order these, there's one with a tag, this is the bad one. They say this is 3x4. When you measure it, there's usually a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off. So tracing it is better than saying, oh, I need a 3x4 box, because these are never 3x4. This is the bad kind, not to buy. It's on there, ready cut, it melts. Never melted until last year they started melting. And this is the good kind, those. Okay, so I've cut this out. I'm gonna take a block. There's two sides. One side is smoother than the other. I originally, when you get the instructions for linoleum block printing, they say that you should carve the rougher side. And I have found that it releases better from the clay on the rougher side. There's like a tiny microscopic amount of air or something that makes it pull off easier. The smooth side sometimes gets stuck, but for the most part, it doesn't get stuck. So I'm gonna put that face down on here, and you can be more accurate. I'm doing this fast. And, okay, so the problem with this stuff is that tape does not stick to it for very long or very well. So you have to go all the way around and meet the other tape. So you've attached it to itself, the tape to itself. Because if you just stick to this, like in a few minutes when you're working, it has left, it has moved. So then you take a spoon. You might have done this in linoleum printing, to transfer things. And between your fingers, you're rubbing that graphite off the paper and onto the linoleum. Okay, you can also, see it's there, my design? You can also use a transfer paper thing, but then you got 3 layers and you gotta get them lined up and stay there. I don't know, I find this easier. Anyway.
Can we just draw on top of it?
Yes, we can just draw.
No, without transfer.
Yeah, but it's harder to change. I'll show you. Okay, so I've got my design here. And I can peek and see that it's there, all right? It's pretty much there. All right, so I'm gonna take this off. And there it is, all right? It has moved from one place to another. Take it out here. So now, sometimes it's more visible than others. Depends on how much you went over the lines with this stuff. And you have to redraw it. Sometimes you don't like it. Okay, you can change it with a pink pearl. You cannot change it with a kneaded eraser. Okay? So, you know, if you are used to drawing with a kneaded eraser with a soft pencil, it doesn't work on this stuff for some reason. So, like I want to take out a line, I can get it off with the pink pearl. So it'll dust, but it's good to have a pink pearl. So did I put a pink pearl on there?
Yeah.
Yes, pink eraser. Okay, and then we start I can start to carve it. Okay, I usually carve them first and then I cut away my outside to get these edges. And for that, you can either use an X-Acto knife, a utility knife, or this dangerous sharp thing that I used to confiscate from my students, because not only is sharp at the bottom, it's sharp at the top. And it's a really strong knife. So the one thing I will say to you about doing this is that they sell something for kids and for people who carve wood blocks called a bench hook, which hooks onto your workbench, and then it has a piece of wood in the front to push this against. All right, I usually use like a notebook. At home I have a big 2x4. Okay, so I'm gonna go, this is the 2. So I'm gonna go on the outside with a number 3. I used to walk up and down the aisle in my classroom and say, hand behind the knife, okay? Don't hold it up here and then start carving. All right, your hand is back here and this bench hook or whatever is up there, so that if this knife, which I will show you how to carve, slips, it's going into that piece of wood, into the air, and not into your hand, okay, your other hand, okay? Okay, so if you look at this back of this blade, it's kind of flat and smooth right about here. You want to go in on an angle and get that smooth part sort of parallel to the surface of the linoleum, well, the rubber. So you're really going, this is close, but you're really going flat like this. You're not gouging and you're not digging. And also that takes you only down a little bit. And if you hate this, you can use the other side. Like some of mine are the ones I'm gonna do. I had a block I hated, so I just flipped it over and made new things. So if you don't go too deep, you got twice as much material to use.
Is
So
that expensive, Robin?
well, this big size is $5.99. But the little 3x5, like file card size, or 4x6 are pretty cheap. They're like $1 or $2. So it's not too outrageous, and it's kind of fun. Anyway, so that's what also, if you're working in your studio, you don't want this stuff in your clay. So you have a separate place that is not near clay, and that I'm not gonna like sweep this into the clay. I don't know what would happen to it in the kiln, but you don't want it in your clay. So
It's made from rubber.
it's made from rubber. So if you see, I'm like moving my wrist and my whole shoulder if possible. Just like when you want to draw a nice curve, you use your whole arm, not just your hand. So that's another thing to think about. And I didn't leave enough room on here, but anyway, so that's the trick of the carving, is to lean back on this back part once you're in. So you sort of get in, like I'm on this angle, and then get under. Get that? Okay, then if you got a 2, I was a high school teacher, I know, it's just like I'm treating you like children. If you want a littler line, a smaller line, same principle, get in and then go on the back, and this is going to give you a much littler line. Okay, round things. Okay, if you look at linoleum block prints, a lot of the circles are really like a little thing where someone went like that, and they're not very circular. That's kind of the best you can do with one of these cutters, but the Dremel, if you have one, can make a perfect dot, and so can, I don't have one here, but a drill bit. If you put a drill bit like this and you twist like that, and then come back out like the opposite direction, don't just pull it off or you get like a little nubby in there, you can make circles, like little dots. Any questions?
Do you want to go to a particular depth?
Yeah, you want to go to the, you want to get in, I'll go here. Want to get in, and then when it's sliding nicely, like about halfway up the sides of those walls. I'm gonna let people try, don't injure yourselves, but see those little trough, that little trough? The material that you're looking at Should be about halfway up. Can't find a knife. It's fun, you can try it. I'm gonna leave like these two out here and some thingies, and people can try it. And then I'm gonna show you how they work, because it's kind of cool.
How big were your flat pieces that you showed them?
Okay, it comes in, this is a 6 by 12. Then it comes in a 12-inch square, so it's twice this. Yeah, that one's not good.
I don't want to ruin that.
All right, well, yeah, it's okay to ruin that. Right here, you want to try on the one I was ruining?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, when that comes around, I don't mind. I brought those for that. So there's one that's twice the size, that's 12 by 12. I use that for like a plate or a platter. Then they sell a 12 by 18, which is expensive. I don't know what I paid for the 12 by 18. You can look it up on Blick. But the 12 by 18, I've done those big reliefs and some bigger platters with, especially the long one. So 18 is your max, which is fine, because that's pretty big. Yeah, and 12 wide. And, you know, I have all kinds of things I've done with it, and you can play around with the drawings for a long time. Like, I'm always like, what am I going to do next? I have a couple things in here I started. This was a watercolor I did, and I'm trying. Yeah, but what I did is I printed on the computer in black and white. Now I'm trying to like interpret it into line. So that might take me a few weeks. So I play around with them for a long time. And some just happen fast, and some happen slow. And then I do a lot of nature themes because I live in New Hampshire, so I have a lot of fish, a lot of loons, a lot of things that people from there love. Okay, so this is a leaf bowl that I made last week, or this week. And I'm going to show you a quick demo. I'll put it. Yeah, I'm gonna pull this stuff out. Is there anybody who doesn't know how to roll a slab or anything like that? I should go back to basic. Of course I do. So basically, I roll 1/4-inch slabs for the most part. Sometimes a little, sometimes like 3/8, not really too much thicker than that, and not thinner because you're going to press this in, it's going to get skinnier. So don't forget to account for that. So, and then I compress them on both sides. This one got dirty, but. So.
Is that
Yeah, this is BX. Now, I have done this with many kinds of stoneware, but not porcelain. So I don't know how it would hold up. Anyway, so there's several little tricky things that you can do. All right, so I'm gonna move this baby before it gets perfect. Yes, in the bottom, for a reason that they don't want to, they think food's catching or something. So what I do is on the first one I put in for the center, I flip. So then you get a foot that has that pretty design on the bottom of the bowl. That's kind of cool, right? Yeah. Anyway, so I put this down. Okay, I brought the rolling pin out. And there's a couple things you have to think about. If you just like start rolling in many different directions, you get bad prints. So you have to like decide where you're going. Like start at the beginning and go forward, because you see this slab is stretching. Okay, you only want it to stretch in one way. Okay, all right. So now it's in, and if you feel it, you'll feel, especially on really big ones. This one's not very big, but you'll feel that the edges tend to be thinner than the middle, even no matter how many times you roll them. And especially if you have one that's like that big or 12 by 12, getting it even is hard. So sometimes I'll go back over the middle, or if it's big like that, I do my dead blow powder method, which I go straight up and down, try not to tug it around. And I kind of have gotten to know like when it's deep enough. But you can peek. So I peek from one side, I see, is that a good impression? And then I hold that one down, I peek from this side, I say, oh, that's not good. So I go back there and I can fix it. Then, don't cut it with an X-Acto or a super sharp knife because you'll cut the edges of your linoleum. So a regular fettling knife, and I try to cut straight up and down. If you angle your knife too much, you get thin edges, right? And I'll show you. I leave a little tab to pick it up. I'll show you. And you can clean this up afterwards, so you don't have to be perfect. So I take away that, pick this up, and I left a little bit here, so I can grab this. Otherwise, you can mess up your image. So I leave a little tab, and then I can go back in here and just sort of set the knife upside down, wing it, you know, it doesn't, and that's what I've got, okay? And I'll tell you, if you have like a double image or something missing, there's two tools I use. I use one of these rubber things for painting, I don't know. I think, do we sell these? No, probably not. This is for like smushing paint on a painting, but there's a lot of different rubber tools available. And I can go back in and kind of bring out that line if it's disappeared. And then if something is really goofed up, this is a Kemper tool that I can go in and I can take away clay on an edge and make something stick up more. So I can mess around with this.
Could you hold that up for us?
Yes. Oh. Okay, so then I'm going to connect this to the next one. Do not save these for the next day because they tend to lose their flexibility, and you want this wetness and this wetness to be the same, pretty much. And you want it also to really be bendable, pliable, whatever the word is. So, here's what I do to figure out how to put these together, and then I'll let you all ask questions. Okay, so I decide where this is going to go, okay? And I take a needle tool that I don't have, a needle tool, not a pencil, and I outline that spot where it's overlapping. Okay, everybody see that outline? Yep. Okay.
Where is the outline?
The outline is on the one it's attaching to. So it fits right there, and I've outlined the edge, okay? Now, I paint that with a lot of slip. I'll tell you why. And then, I put it back, if you can figure out where I have it. Problem. I think it went like that. Okay, I put it back, and I take an impression of that slip. And then I peel it back off again, and I know where to score. So that the back of the bowl is not full of scratch marks, it's only scratched where it's overlapping.
So that means you have to finish this today. You cannot.
No, I have wrapped them up and finished them tomorrow, but I don't make 8 of these and put them back together. Because they lose as they dry, they lose their ability to mold, and you can't bend them as easily. So if I did these 2, I could finish it tomorrow as long as I start with a fresh slab and make fresh ones of these. I tried accumulating things, and then the next day putting them together, and I got cracked. Right? So it's always better to do it nice and fresh and wet.
Okay.
Okay, so I scratch this up. And you can use a serrated rib. I use this because I have a lot of control. You can use those little brushes with the metal prongs, whatever you're used to. then I go back and I put more slip on. And didn't I have a sponge on this? Okay. And I put this on there. Yeah, I made these. I went to a course for children with disabilities, how to teach children with disabilities, and they said this was easier to hold. So I saved corks for years, and you cut a slit in the cork, you get the embroidery needles that aren't sharp, you stick them in there, and you put a piece of duct tape around it. And I got used to it, and it's actually my arthritis in my thumb, it's much better, because it's like a big thing. Anyway, that's how that evolved. So then I'm gonna put this on here. I'm gonna press it in, I'm gonna press it to the bowl, get a nice shape, and like, if you use a sponge to press instead of your fingers, you're much less likely to mess up your design. And then, you know, I'm very OCD about the edges and everything. I go in and clean away the extra slip, and the next day I go in with a different tool and I scrape things that I don't like the look of, but that's basically it. So you have that, and you just keep adding, and I try to add them symmetrically, like I'll add one on this side and then one on this side and then one on this side, so that you don't, you know, you get a nice balance.
So
Right.
you don't cut off the overlap part?
No,
Okay.
it stays behind.
Okay.
Like this one, if you look back here, you see?
Right.
What I do is I leave it in the bowl. I leave these in the bowl to equalize. Every night I close everything up and let like new clay and old clay all get the same moisture level. And then I let it slowly dry with a little, you know, I'll leave it there.
The wrinkle of the plastic goes to the,
Not too bad. Because I'll tell you, plastic is keeping the back wet. So after everything is equalized and made, what I do is I close it up and leave like a little tiny bit of air pocket. Like I'll close it like that and let a little air get in. So the top layer gets pretty dry. Then I take those pieces of foam over there and I fill it up with those and I turn it over on on the high banding wheel. And then I can work on the back. And I usually like smooth it out, clean it up. I sort of bevel these a little so they're not sharp. And I sign it. Like here,
Wow.
okay? So sometimes the overlap is too much and I don't like it, I can just cut that off now. Once it's like really become a bowl. It's leather hard, it's usable. But I wouldn't turn this over just on the table. I fill this up with sponges, you know, those things, and then I carefully turn it over so it doesn't touch the table. Then I work on it. Any questions?
On that one, on that one, the raised parts are so raised, it doesn't look like you had that with what you just did.
Well, I may not have pressed as hard, but also some I think the littler cutter, the number 2, cuts a little deeper. If you look at the shape of them, I don't know where they are. But you see, that's a V, and this is sort of an open V. I don't know, I feel like these lines, like when you do hatching like this, are a little deeper. But it also depends like on your mood, so if you really want to bang it hard. You get a little. And as long as you've got a 1/4 inch of clay, you don't have to worry too much. See?
Yeah.
Right, if you make your clay too thin, you're gonna end up with trouble.
So you put the next one on top of the
Yeah.
other one.
Yeah, I put one opposite and then I put it there.
But then you're gonna put, so, I don't know, I have to look at that, is it flat then on the other side?
I'll tell you what happens, this one I put 2 on the bottom, I didn't put the circular one on the bottom, so, but they sit. Sometimes they don't, you turn it over and it doesn't sit so well, you gotta mess with it.
So Robin, is there any area that has 3 layers?
That's a good question.
Really not. I mean, maybe at the very bottom, like see where it's right there, it's a little humpy? That might, I don't know, I don't think there's anywhere where it has 3 layers.
Is that more towards us so we can see? Okay.
So at most it's
Okay.
two layers.
At the most, it's
Okay.
2 layers.
Okay.
And so at the most, after they were 1/4-inch slabs that got pounded down to probably a little less than 1/4, and then they got put back together, most is a 1/2 inch of clay, but not usually. Usually this is, it doesn't feel that heavy. And actually, I've sold those for years and years, and people like it for like fruit or chips or a centerpiece. They like that it's sort of a solid thing, not a
Right.
real fragile, breakable
Right.
bowl. So they're appealing.
That's great.
So if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Well, so on your vases, you
Mhm.
do this and then you attach it onto the
Yes,
the
and
same way.
The same, well, like if it's a flower, pretend this is clay, okay? I don't attach them flat.
Right.
I tend to stick when it's on the vase, I stick like a couple fingers under and try to get it to have some movement.
Dimensional.
Yeah, and also, I don't want to trap air. So I try to have ways in from the sides that any air could escape, and the center is really your major flat to flat attachment, if you know what I mean. Because I don't want to end up, with an air bubble. But I really haven't had them. It's occasionally one of these ones will crack, but not too often.
Excuse me, what about the glazing when you want to glaze it, the finish?
I wax the part that touches the table, so I'll stand next to it, and I'll take a pencil and I'll turn this and I'll figure out what's touching the table, and then I'll wax, and then I fill it and dump it, and then I usually turn it over and pour in a circle. I have a lot of different ways I do it. Sometimes I'll wax which takes forever. I'll wax the veins, or I've also done it where I painted in the cracks with slip or with an oxide. And I've dotted. I've done ones where I dotted all the inside. Depends on time, whether you feel like it.
Robin, when you attach the flower or the leaves to your vase,
Yes.
do you put sponges, small sponges inside or no?
Inside, no,
When you attached it?
no.
Okay.
I just use a lot of scoring, a lot of slip. Hold it on there, and it stays.
Okay.
And also, I am attaching it at various points. You can look up there. So it's not just attached at the middle, it's
Right.
attached like there and there. I attach it like 4 or 5 places.
Plus the center.
Plus the center. Yeah. And then I keep checking also. I let everything equalize, because sometimes what happens is if the vase is drier than the attachments, you gotta close that up tight and wait 24 hours. Otherwise, the vase sucks the moisture out of the attachment and it can fall off. So it's really a question of
Time.
slow once you're doing it. I like slow now that I'm retired. I like everything slow. I like the process more than the product. I like the whole, the whole thing. Yeah, so yes, you have to keep wrapping it. And even to dry at the end, when you're done, I leave them a couple days under plastic, come and check everything, that nothing has moved, and clean it up. Then I do 2 checks. Wrap it all up again, then come back again and check everything is in good shape. And then I let it dry under plastic. Like the ones that are back in New Hampshire drying are drying in a plastic kind of tenty thing. I don't just expose everything to air some way. It's too risky. Any other questions? Good. Oh, I did it in less than an hour.
Yeah.